Outer Orange.
Today, we are going to take a look at basically what set 3 decks are looking like, what's been performing well over in Cardfight Vanguard. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, I feel like it's been a century and a half since I've done deck standard, but realistically, it's only been like, I think 2 days ago is on the site. So we're going to talk about the new set that's coming out. It's VTO3 for Divine Z. Quite a bit of stuff, and I kind of want to look over some decks with you guys and kind of theory craft with you and kind of tell you what the future's going to be looking like, because we do have some very good decks coming out of the set, and you should be aware of them. Starting off with Dragon Empire. Dragon Empire has definitely been kind of shining recently with some of the new cards that have been coming out. But first, we'll kind of run through. Definitely be very mindful of Shotodoji and Shiranui, by the way. These are definitely the powerhouses right now. With a little touch, I would say, of Overlord. I think Overlord isn't too bad either. But we can go ahead and quickly just look at what's been going on. Here's a Bob deck. Bob shouldn't have changed too much, but I see we do have the Shenri package being run. Some people have been doing some weird stuff where they've been putting like cross overdress cards into decks, and that's definitely been something people have been trying out. So that's an approach. We got some Tabayura stuff here. Still don't believe in this deck, but it does get results every now and then. It's kind of one of those weird decks where it kind of does stuff but also doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of a weird mix, but it's got a really good brush deck. There's a ton of Shotodoji, so let's go ahead and break down Shotodoji real quick, because this is definitely one of the strongest decks that'll be coming out. Most decks will look very similar, and there will be like a minor difference between just a couple small changes. Some people will run different orders, or they'll run a different ratio with the grade 1s, and some prefer cyclors and some don't prefer cyclors. You'll notice this a lot between decks, but the main core of the deck will stay the same. And the biggest core I'll talk about here is the new boss card, which is Shotodoji himself, which is just a better version of the old one. He's kind of like a stronger version from my perspective. Maybe there's something else. I don't know. I'm not a Shotodoji like expert. I just know enough. The grade 3 is like an older card that everybody runs, just draws you a bunch of cards. The grade 2 is basically bottom deck the bind units. So this card's just insane if you want to bomb deck a ton of stuff that your opponent gets. Also keep in mind, it also rips cards. You can rip a card from hand and then activate this to bomb deck the card that they ripped, that you ripped from them. So it's actually really nuts. So basically it's like a board control along with hand rips. Just a small hand rip. It's not the same, but it's there. And then this is the new grade 2. I can't remember on the top of my head what it does, but I think this is the one that sends that rip, if I remember correctly. This is an old card right here. This is a promo. This is the one that basically calls itself out every time you shove 2 dudes into souls, so you can counterblast and call this guy out. So also very strong. This is the guy that gets the persona fetchers. So this is like the persona looping you can keep doing over and over again because you keep calling this card out. So this is the card that basically enables the persona loop. Once you have one, you keep seeing the rest. This is the bind card, the one that binds itself and counter charges. This is the counter charging because people try to deny you. And then this is, I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it does. I believe this can draw a card if you don't control. So just another interesting card to go in there. And then after that is perfect guards and triggers. And then like I said, some people are on the order, some people are on the cycler, the new energy cycler to be specific, and all that kind of fun stuff kind of in the deck. I'm kind of weird about the energy cyclers because the most you can run is like 2. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you didn't see it, then it can make it a little bit weird to use. But I guess it just depends on like what's going on. This deck doesn't use that much energy, so you can get away with like energy cards since you're not using much energy. But the effect of this guy itself is basically it. But that's basically kind of what Shotodoji does. And there's a ton of lists. It's a multi-attacking deck with a bunch of combo kind of oriented pieces between your soul and board state, and that's kind of just what to be weary of with this kind of deck. It's just how much counterblast you want to give it, because it gets faster. It gets really strong the more counterblast you give it, and it also has, you can run a swap for a Regalia's piece. It's got the space for it. Forktail is also an interesting thing. I don't know if I believe in the Forktail, but she is a stealth fiend, so you can kind of switch her out. Don't forget the ride line stays the same except for the new guys. So that's basically kind of sort of what the deck is. Also, if you hit OT, by the way, you get to reset your turn essentially, because you get to reset the attack of this. Since it's when it attacks. This is right here when this unit attacks. Basically, you can put 2 rears so you can call out 2 rears basically. So yeah, something to keep in mind there. But that's basically Shotodoji. I'm not gonna go super deep into it quite yet because I'm still kind of figuring this deck out myself. I know the basic concepts, I just don't know the combos. Yes, I'm still figuring it out. Got a one little singular Vermilion here. Vermilion does keep randomly getting support. It's just no one's playing the deck. Just so you know, this deck's getting support. So if you're a Vermilion fan, there's a deck for you. Got a bunch of Shiranui. Shiranui is still insane, and I still believe one of the best decks in the format. It maybe not the best deck anymore. I do believe it's still one of the strongest decks. So I think English has kind of figured out the list. Like I think there's like a go-to list that basically is like just the best list, and it's definitely I'm seeing here on the JP side too. It's basically running the 2 and the 1. I think English has these both at 4 copies. I'm seeing here they're running at 3. This new combination with the grade 1, which strides, is just really insane. If you guys don't know the combo, basically what you can do is you can play these grade 1s that say when they're basically whenever you discard. This includes striding. These grade 1s activate. If they're on rearguard or in your drop zone, you can remove them from the game with Energy Blast 3 and then add the discard card back to hand. And if you know how striding works and just in general how stride decks tend to work, you discard quite a bit. So these cards come up like a crazy amount. And on top of that, the grade 2s call out cards from your soul, and then also can retire, so you can get Shenri out all the time. This combo is just so strong, specifically in Shenri, because you're drawing cards over and over again with this card. You're basically getting value off of these, and then you have your normal dominate turns. And even though you lost the ride line, it actually doesn't even matter because you have the grade 2 that lets you dominate anyway. So this deck is just still just really insane in my opinion. I always see people kind of put this deck like lower, and I never know why, because this deck still has just such an insane pop off. You did lose the OT, but it's still just a very strong deck. You just can't go wrong with constant 28k columns and drawing cards and recycling your cards over and over again. It's just a very powerful combination. So I still think the deck's super viable. There's this Varga Dogries combination deck. Not too sure what that means, but I'm assuming it's just Varga. just Varga decks here. Varga is still like a very popular choice amongst people playing in general. It's still like one of the still topping. Like there's actually in step 4, and you see this deck quite a bit. It's like you see this deck. I mean, it hasn't been tapped or nothing has really happened to it, so it's wrong. This is interesting. Seeing Blue OT over Dragon Empire T is definitely interesting. But then there's this is the Virgilia deck. This is basically the new comic book thing, which we'll be getting as a trial deck on our side, so that's gonna be really exciting to see there. Go over to Keter. Ketter's got one singular Bastion. Bastion looks exactly the same all the time, to be honest. So if you're still new or haven't tried Bastion, or you're kind of new to the game, this is definitely an easy deck to pick up, as it's basically stayed the same the entire time. So if you just want to play some Keter and you want to stick to some knights, here you go. Next we have MLB. MLB did get a new card right here. I actually pulled it the other day. Got a new card and also got a new blaster, but blaster dude, so you can kind of play a really good package. This deck's actually pretty good. It's still a little piece reliant, and it still has like kind of a counter blast issue. You'll notice that's why people run the caliber right here. This is the counter charger. Very important, because like I said, this deck goes through counter blast like crazy. And it's just good. It's like an overall like a pretty good deck. I like it. I will say I was kind of coping on it for a bit, and over time I found out like it's not as good. PBO did, I believe, get maybe a new card. I don't think it did. I think PBO was about the same, so I'm not gonna look too deeply there. I don't think anything's gonna change, but I am seeing more PBO lists than I would expect, but I am seeing the dog. Dog is still, really good. You have to go through your deck. Some Raziel. So Raziel is still, a good divine deck to kind of just pick if you want to just keep it simple and just play a good divine deck. Nothing too crazy there. It hasn't changed too much. We got a Lyle here. So I hear this deck's actually performing pretty well. You got the double combo where you can kind of deck in and have perfect guards, access perfect guards. You can run the hostage package to kind of increase that. And there's that. And next we have the Maradolin. This is the one with the Obscurade. I don't know what this does, so I'm not going to go into detail about it, because I legitimately don't know too much about this deck to give you guys knowledge on it. But it looks pretty cool. It kind of gives me like Revengers vibes. It looks very interesting. It's got an own order set, and it looks really cool. It gives me a good like a Shadow Paladin Gold Paladin kind of like Spectral Duke kind of vibe. I'm kind of digging it. I should find out what this deck does. It looks cool. I just have no idea what the heck it is. Also, we're getting the Twin Cast. Oh, what is this Twin Cast? Twin Cast is insane, by the way. I should make like a whole video talking about Twin Cast alone, because this card's like absolutely nuts. It's an extremely good Regulus piece to throw into any deck, and it makes my Go actually a lot more powerful. My Go has like a lack of like kind of like certain shield value early on, and drawing into this card just helps so much to deal with aggression early. Twin Cast is goated. So very strong card there. Let's go over to Brandgate. We got some Sarah Snow. Sarah Snow should be about the same. It shouldn't change too much, because it's mainly just the new restander. Nothing else has really changed too much about this deck, and it shouldn't change for a bit. I think it'll be kind of in the same slot for a bit. I definitely will say I hyped this deck up for myself a little bit too high. I reread this grade 1 and found out that you can't ride on the turn you rode, if that makes sense. So if you ride to 3, you can't go to 4. Which makes sense in most decks, but you'll notice if you're playing something like Kyrie or something along those lines, you actually can ride if you went second, but you can't do it with this deck. So that definitely I think weakens the deck a little bit. But it's still good. When that deck pops off, it pops off. We got Ava. Ava is, I think, still a contender, just not the best rank A contender anymore. But I still wouldn't sleep on this deck. I still think this deck just deck thins so many guards at a deck that its late game gets wild. You always think you're gonna kill the Ava player facing, and then they just barely survive every single time. Like, I will Messiah double lock their grade 3s, and I would still get punished somehow and still lose the game. Like, this deck just deck thins a lot. These heals go crazy late game. Like, I'm not even joking. This deck just hits like a truck all the time. And giving them first, I think, is like just really scary. You should never give this deck first. Just don't do it. They don't get Persona if they go second. So if they ride up and they instantly go into the poison, they do not get Persona. I think that's a very important key piece to keep in mind. So even if you're a Stride deck, I think you actually just want to go first into this matchup and just hope for the best in terms of draws, and just accept that you're gonna have a dead turn. I think you'd rather have a dead turn than them slamming your face with like these grade 3s with crits on them. So I'm just letting you know, as a Stride deck to Stride deck person, you should probably go first into the deck if you're gonna face it. But Ava is definitely still a powerhouse of a deck, and I would definitely be mindful of it. And actually, I really like this list. I'm looking at it now. I'm really vibing with it. I think a lot of people have been cutting back on this grade 2 ops grade, and I strongly disagree with that. I know people are trying to make more room for monster cards. I'm real with you. You should be looking for ops grades at like the entire game. They're also 10k shield all game. Like, you really shouldn't be lowering on these cards. Like, I think 4-3 is like doable, but realistically, I think it should be 4-4. Anyone, I see some people have this at 2, and I'm like, oh my god, no, do not have this at 2. This card is too good at 2. It should definitely be a 3. Also, there are just some matchups where that front row removal was actually really powerful. There's some matchups where you have to go 2 and 3 specifically because cards like Messiah will lock your dude, so you can't go like double 3s. You have to go like 2-3, 2-3, 2-3 every single turn. In that case, this card comes up a lot because you're gonna lose your guys. They're gonna get bound, they're gonna get locked, they're gonna disappear. So you might as well get the most value you can out of them. And also, a front row board removal into Messiah is like perfect because you're getting rid of their pieces. They have to recover, it makes it hard for them to play the game, all that kind of fun stuff. So just something to keep in mind. Very, very powerful deck. I've actually been I'm still thinking about taking this deck. Like, I'm still considering this deck as an option for BCS. I'm not sold on it yet, but I'm definitely considering because it is a very powerful deck to take. That's Ava. We got Archite. Archite is the other powerhouse of Vanguard right now. It is a very powerful deck that minuses your opponent's base power, so you go down in power. It finally has crit pressure with this new guy here. This new guy is definitely a game changer because that crit pressure goes hard. You can also go for like a pseudo multi-attack combination with the monster, this, and then on top of that, this card. So basically, this card lets you get the cards back, and then you can discard and then bring your discard cards back to the board, actually, depending on how you play it out. It's a really weird combo. You can do it. It's a little convoluted, meaning like it's a little piece reliant. You got to do things a certain way to get there, but you can extend multi-attacks under Persona and just have like really strong columns. This deck does make numbers like crazy. It is definitely one of the stronger Vanguard decks. I can't say if it's better than Ava, but it's definitely really, really good. And definitely keep your eye out for this deck, as there's different variations of builds people are running, and it's just insane. It also deck thins like crazy because you play these cards to basically just get all your deck thins out. And I think the most important part about this deck is it doesn't have to have 3 of these to play the game. Before it did, now you get the 2 and you're fine, and your ride line will always get you 2, so you always have it. So yeah, very interesting deck. I think it's very powerful, definitely on the lookout, and you should definitely be weary of it, and it definitely has a lot of strength. So definitely another deck out there that I'm very curious about. And I just said definitely like 50 times. I'm so sorry. But anyways, that's Ava. I mean, not Ava, sorry. That's Archite. We got Messiah. Messiah is the deck that I've been on recently. It's been the deck that I've really been enjoying because I really like decks that draw a ton of cards, and this is definitely a deck that just draws a ton of cards, and it is very powerful because drawing cards is good, right, guys? Drawing cards is good. Now, this is kind of similar to mine. I will say the biggest thing is I do not run four of this. I run this at 0 copies. I run this at max, and I run haste instead. But yeah, Messiah, basically, again, back to these cards I was talking about earlier. These cards are just nuts. You basically just, whatever you discard, you get it back to your hand, and then you can just go crazy. Now, you notice this deck doesn't run a single Messiah card. Not a single worthy Messiah. You don't need it, because you realistically don't even need to stride. You never even want to stride into the other one. I will say 1 copy is fine because sometimes you will stride into this guy. So basically, if you don't have any unlockers, this is a really good target as a 2nd or 3rd stride if you don't have any lockers. But realistically speaking, you'll almost always be on this one. Like, almost always, unless you're really in a bad position. It kind of happened, but you'll usually be on the first one. But they just said screw that. Otherwise, you just draw a ton of cards off of this, draw a ton of cards off of this gets to a board, these dudes pop off. There's just so much good stuff in this deck. It's very, 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 very strong. That's why I've been playing it a lot recently. I've been really enjoying its playstyle. It feels very powerful, and it also runs Brandgate OT, and Brandgate OT is very disgusting. We got a little bit of that B hero. I think this is B hero. Yeah, this is B hero. We got a little bit of B hero support. There was like a card or 2 that came out recently. I don't see it in here actually being played. I think it's this one. There's the promo. There's one other card that came out, but I guess people aren't running it. I'm still got stuff. I think still I got like 1 singular new card. Also, I think it got a new arm card, so now you have access to arms, so you can try out that. And next we have Dayusha. Dayusha is definitely a deck I want to try out. I'm very interested in kind of the play style of it. I also just always like Dayusha. I'm debating on building this. I'm not really a big fan of another deck that requires like an order to kind of play the game, but it does search them out. So I'm a little curious as to the play style of it and kind of trying out. Also, you know, this card's just really goated, and I really like Dayusha. So might be definitely something to check out, as it has been performing pretty decently well. I would say the performance rate has been pretty good, considering it's like a new deck and it's fighting into all this other bullshit that's kind of all this other Stride deck stuff's going on. But that's basically Brain Gate. We have some Dark States. Chaos, I think, is a little bit of a cope right now. If you can't find these cards, I would not play this deck. Also, you do need one of the Cycler. Sorry, and the Cycler is a manga art, and that card is pretty expensive. And basically, this is a pay-to-win deck, long story short, and so it has like a one-turn kill and it pops off. And by the way, this is coming from someone who absolutely loves this deck. I love playing this deck. It's really, really fun. But I will say finding these triggers is really hard. In case you're wondering why you need them, they count as 2 names, not 1. And Chaos counts them as 2 names instead of 1. Because of that, you get your Chaos Condition faster. Because when you whip a Chaos Condition, you're doing nothing. But if you don't whip a Chaos Condition, you're popping off. Jet is another deck to talk about. I think Jet with the new stuff is actually insane now. Not like insane, like broken, but it's especially now with the unrestriction. I think this deck has actually a really good fighting chance into the PCS season we have coming up. I think some folks are actually sleeping on this deck, but I think there's a lot of room for this deck to perform well. Is it better than Nui? I don't know. I don't play it enough to like know that much about it, but I will say it has an insanely good grade 2 game. We have these grade 1s now that can pop off and like again just replenish your hand faster, so you don't have to worry about your hand dying as much. You can also rush with these cards. Like there's just, now that we have the Swirlware and the GG and all the good stuff is basically back in the deck, you can just kind of go crazy with the combos and have like big dudes, and you have a multi-attack, you have the guard restrict, keep in mind. I think basically this replaces Luard. Luard was stronger because it had the dog, but it replaces what Luard was doing because Luard also had the guard restrict. But I feel almost that English side might actually be playing this deck quite a lot because again we have access to the most insane generic in generic that came out in Festival 3. Access to this card, and this card is just absolutely insane. I'm at the point where I might actually be picking it up and playing it because I think this deck has a lot of potential, and I just think the end game in this deck is just really, really good, and it draws a lot, it survives, it's just got a lot going for it. I think it's an overall good deck, so that might be able to look out for Jet. I think it's got potential. Got some Jejuled. Jejuled is actually still pretty good, I would say. I don't think it's like this. I think it's still really powerful. I think long story short, you should be mindful of this deck. I think it definitely can do a lot, so just be weary of its existence. We have Lukier. Lukier did get the Silverthorn Venus stuff, so basically you have this as access now. I'm not gonna lie, this deck is really hard to play. At least I think it's hard to play. It might just be a play style diff. For me, this deck is a little complicated to play, so I'm just not even gonna touch it. I do think it's pretty though, and I really want to touch it, but it's just a little bit too much for me. And I'm one of those people where it can't be too complex for me to take it to like a tournament. And this deck is definitely complex to play, so I kind of dropped it, but you can play. We got the doll deck. I actually definitely slept on this doll deck a little bit. I've been testing it more recently, and it's definitely got a lot of potential. This grade 2 actually isn't as bad as I thought it was. I don't know about 4 copies of it, but it's definitely actually not that bad. It gets a lot of power. It you know, binds your stuff. It's actually not too terrible. So it's an interesting choice to have actually in your deck. And I actually run the grade 1 charges, and then you can still buy speed and draw over this at 4. I just run that at higher copies because I just see it early and just soul charging my deck while also drawing cards. But a really cool deck. I think it still has a chance. I think the only downside to the Android deck is the fact that you go into time with it. And I think under BCS rules, this is an extremely hard deck to take, as if you go into time, you're kind of screwed. So definitely be on the lookout. It's not a bad choice, but it is a little risky. So it's just something to keep in mind there. Next we have Blagmire. Blagmire, I have trouble finding this deck like to be insane, but I do see its performance. It does have some good stuff in it. Also just got the promo, and it's getting a new grade 3 as well. I believe this new grade 3 is getting, I think the 2 is already existing. I just know there's the grade 2 restander. I don't remember exactly what they look like. I just know what they do. But yeah, this deck just draws a lot, you know, has the turn off ability. You can run the guitar guy to kind of also turn off strides. If you're really fearful of strides, all that kind of fun stuff. So just another really good deck to play. Got Benny. Now Benny is definitely like a unique deck. This is the Dark States version, so this is not the regular version. I don't precisely know what the regular version does, but I can tell you her version, the Vispo version, is actually very good. So you can look up for that deck as well because it's pretty disgusting. Okay, now Magnolia actually is a real deck. I would actually be very mindful of Magnolia. If you know any Magnolia players that have been cooking, you should definitely try testing into them and just understand what this deck's doing, because it is definitely actually a very hard deck to play into. It has a lot of numbers, it draws a ton. Once it gets to the grade 4 again, it's in a really good spot. It's actually not a bad deck, so just be on the lookout for it. I think it's one of the better Stoichea decks right now. We have Leonore. Leonore just got a bunch of draw power with the Broccoli's and stuff like that, so people are just basically running that. Everything else is about the same. Claudine, someone randomly took Roaring Prison Claudine, I guess, and just went down that path. I wonder if they knew about this effect. So this is a porter that doesn't stack for every rearguard you call, but only stacks for rearguard present. So it kind of messes up this thing. Basically, Roaring Prison of Dragons don't get power off of this. Just keep in mind. So the your roaming prison dragons are kind of vanilla, but you can buff it up with cards like these, I guess. So I don't know, maybe there's something here. I'm not too sure about that. We have Zorga. Zorga's still really good. Fairy at 4 is crazy, actually. I'm surprised to see that. You got the old insect dude. And it's not a while. The double blitz, obviously, just to play more blitzes, not that fun stuff. Meteoric at 4, big props to that. Amazing card. But otherwise, yeah, it's just Zorga. We've seen a lot of Zorga lists. They're all just slightly different, but all have the same similar approach of I just want to kill you as fast as I can and do what I can to get there. And if I can't, I'll just tank and draw a bunch of cards. And then we have the Straha. This is the new stuff. This is that deck like that likes to turn off your opponent. I need to read some of these cards, or reread, I should say. I read these cards when they were released, and I thought they were really cool, but they were really relying on your opponent being on grade 3 and kind of just, it's like if you go second into this, you have like some of your stuff stays offline or something like that. I don't remember precisely. I have to like reread the cards a little bit, but definitely a very interesting deck to kind of look into. Lyrical's got Kyrie. Kyrie is good. I will say I don't think it's as powerful as I think we all initially thought it was going to be. It's not a bad choice by any means. It does hit for numbers. It is a 5 attack deck, but sometimes it just randomly loses advantage out of nowhere, and it kind of gets slow in some ways. The other thing is the same numbers over and over again. It doesn't really change that once it gets to that point. I will say the board clear is really nice and it does draw a ton. It definitely has its moments. I don't think it's insane though. Like I definitely thought it was a little bit stronger when I was kind of like just messing around with it. But the more time I spent on it, the more I was kind of starting to realize that it feels okay. And I will say also this card existing has made this deck better. Just having Sank in the deck feels really, really good. And that could be said for all the grade 4 decks, by the way. But basically the restander goes crazy. This lets you go, it goes into soul, you draw, bounce 2 on grade 4 or 1 on grade 3. You can have this for the cyclers, friend set just to basically bounce the dudes back, and then this for shield and draw power. And obviously being on grade 4 Kyrie just for bouncing and calling over and over again. This is for shield, and then the Vanguard just to see cards because you play order cards, because this one's running the most of the package. Here's Prism. Prism shouldn't have changed too much. It should be about the same, but I'm just going to realize the list there. Here's Fortia. Fortia is basically about the same, so here's just the list of that. And then after that, we have Charmouts. Charmouts should be about the same, but again, you're just running your usual Charmout package and then whatever generics you can fit to make the deck strong. Or keep it strength going for that. And then other than that, we have Token Rombo with nothing, Monster Strike, Shaman King, Rigger Ragnarok. We have some Mygo. I will say Mygo, now having access to this twin cast, as mentioned earlier, makes this deck actually be able to tank better. And I still think this deck is one of the best decks to take still. Like it's definitely like the top 10. I think this deck's still in top 10 here. It's just a really, really good deck. Like you can't go wrong with this deck. If you're really like feeling uncomfortable being on any other deck, you can easily take this. If you're worried about Stride meta, this deck's like perfect to take because you'll always get first. I will say you do have to contest Divine decks, and Divine decks like to go first too. And that's the only issue I would say that I would have with this deck is that problem, because that can be a problem. Raphonica is another deck that people tend to think like if Nui goes around this. Nui does not go around. I mean that Nui loses to this. Nui does not lose to this. You can pick other cards that aren't just the Raphonica cards. There's ways to play around this. It's not like that crazy of a deck. And then we have Vispo. There's a lot of Benny here, and let's quickly go over Benny because this is kind of important. Benny basically plays all the same cards over and over again. I talked about in another video, but I'm talk about in this video as well. Basically, you get all these 2s have the exact same effects on them, and then all the 1s correspond with the 2s. So the 2s grab the one that they correspond with, and then they all have the same effects on them. Kind of set up the board, and then you put them back into Soul. And Benny has just his own effects where it minuses the Vanguard and also it draws, I believe, and a couple other things. Kind of plays like different Baron Magnus. Very, very powerful, but I think we're gonna get a little late, so it might not be something to worry about for us. And then there's Emma. I don't remember what Emma does. I think she restands. I don't remember precisely what she does off the top of my head, but it says Dragon Empire deck basically, so you just play the Dragon Empire cards. That's it for this. This is basically all the kind of going over a bit of like what the meta is looking like. Here's also the chart. Shoujo Doji being at the very top end of this. And before I close out the video, something to keep in mind why this deck is so high up here. This deck can play with absolutely no resources, and I think that's the biggest strength of this deck is the fact they can play with no resources. A lot of decks can't do this, and I would know this as someone that's been playing a lot. Basically, a lot of decks I've been playing have been relying on resources except for Zorga. Zorga can play without resources. It's very powerful. If you're playing a deck like Messiah, if you happen to damage the overtrigger on like self-damage it like early on, you actually lose a turn. It really, really, really sucks. As a Fennel player, Fennel, if you happen to damage deny yourself, you also lose a turn, and that deck losing a turn actually kills off your entire game. Like you will usually lose because of that. So Shoujo Doji being the exclusion is very important. I've talked about this so many times in the past with Steam Maidens. Steam Maidens is a V premium deck that has a similar kind of playstyle to Shoujo Doji, where you're basically playing with bind and calling cards out, and you can have 4 attacks without a single counterblast used. or Soul Blast, honestly. And for that very reason, that's what made that deck so powerful. And I also think that kind of strategy, that concept carries over very powerfully into decks like Shotodoji as well. The fact that its effect requires Energy Blast, which is a resource you just naturally get over time, and the fact that you can call dudes out and still have a 4-attack turn without basically committing much is a very powerful tool to have in a game like Cardfight Vanguard. I'm going to end the video here. Hope you guys enjoyed that. 50 cards at shop, code orange if you need goodies. Please like and subscribe. It does really help build the channel. I am trying to get to 5K by the end of the year. We are about 4 months away, and hopefully we'll be able to get there, and hopefully we'll be able to hopefully all my knowledge and everything I provide will be able to help you. And like I said, please like, subscribe to kind of help push all that. Thank you guys for code orange if you need any goodies. Other than that, guys, peace out. Das Vidania. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.